The council chamber stretched high above the gathered representatives, its walls lined with viewing screens showing 1,000 worlds. Captain Daniel Price stood at the center of the circular floor, his hands clasped behind his back. Beside him, Ambassador Sophie Grant kept her expression neutral despite the hostility that filled the room. 50 years had passed since humanity first reached beyond Earth and encountered the galactic community. 50 years of trade, of shared knowledge, of colonies spreading across the stars. Now it was ending. Council Prime rose from his elevated seat, his body clicking as he moved. The chamber fell silent. His translator device hummed to life. "We have reviewed all evidence," announced. "Humanity has been among us for 5 decades. In that time you have shown your true nature." Sophie tensed but said nothing. Daniel remained perfectly still. "You expand too quickly," continued. "You colonize worlds at a pace that disturbs the natural order. You bring weapons where we bring peace. You question traditions that have stood for." A reptilian alien with silver scales activated his platform. "Humanity's history speaks clearly. Your own records show thousands of years of warfare. You have barely achieved peace among your own kind, yet you spread across the galaxy as if you own it." "We have followed every law," Sophie said calmly. "Every treaty, every protocol." "The letter of the law, perhaps," hissed, "but not the spirit. You contaminate other species with your aggressive culture. Your music is too loud. Your stories glorify violence. Your very presence makes peaceful races uncomfortable." Daniel almost smiled at that. Humanity's crime was making others uncomfortable. Another spoke up, a floating jellyfish-like creature. "3 species have filed complaints about human military vessels near their borders. You say you were on training exercises, but the message was clear: intimidation." "Those exercises were in neutral space," Sophie replied, "as is our right." "Rights," said the word like a curse. "Always you speak of rights, of freedoms, of individual choice. These concepts disrupt the harmony we have built." The charges continued for an hour. Humanity was too curious, too inventive, too unpredictable. They asked too many questions. They challenged too many assumptions. They refused to simply accept the way things had always been done. Finally called for the vote. "All in favor of removing humanity from the galactic community, cast your decision now." The display screens lit up one by one. Green lights for yes, red for no. Daniel watched the count climb. Green, 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 500 representing 500 species. The green lights like stars coming out at dusk. Not a single red light appeared. 500 to 0. "The decision is unanimous," declared. "Humanity is hereby banished from all galactic territories. You have 10 standard years to evacuate your colonies from shared space. All trade agreements are void. All cultural exchanges are terminated. All embassies must close." Sophie started to speak, but raised a clawed appendage. "There will be no appeal, no reconsideration. This council has spoken. Humanity is not welcome among us." The chamber erupted in approving clicks, chirps, and hums. 500 species celebrating their decision. Daniel stepped forward. The noise gradually subsided. "May I speak?" he asked. Hesitated, then gestured permission. "We came to the stars with hope," Daniel said simply. "We wanted to learn, to grow, to be part of something larger than ourselves. We believed that, despite our flaws, we could contribute something of value." He paused, looking around at the alien faces. "It seems we were wrong. Not about our ability to contribute, but about whether you wanted that contribution. You've made your position clear. We are too different, too unsettling, too human." "You don't deny the charges?" asked, surprised. "Which ones?" Daniel shrugged. "That we expand quickly, true. We're explorers by nature. That we bring weapons, also true. The galaxy isn't always safe and we prefer to protect ourselves. That we question traditions, guilty as charged. We believe things should make sense, not just exist because they've always existed." Sophie glanced at him, curious where he was going with this. "But here's what you need to understand," Daniel continued. "We didn't come here to conquer you. We didn't come to change you. We came to stand beside you as equals. You've decided that's impossible. You want obedience, not partnership. Conformity, not diversity. Silence, not questions." "Your arrogance proves our point," said coldly. "Perhaps," Daniel agreed. "Or perhaps your fear proves ours. You're not banishing us because we've harmed you. You're banishing us because we make you uncomfortable. because we remind you that there are other ways to live, other values to hold, other paths to walk. The chamber erupted in angry sounds. Several shouted over each other, demanding Daniel be removed. He held up his hands for quiet. Surprisingly, the noise faded. "We accept your judgment," Daniel said clearly. "We will leave every colony, every outpost, every human presence in your territories. You'll have your harmony back." His mandibles clicked in satisfaction. "You will comply with all terms." "Completely," Sophie confirmed. "We'll begin the evacuation immediately. 10 years is more than enough time." "You're not going to fight this," sounded almost disappointed. Daniel smiled then, a genuine expression of something the aliens couldn't quite read. "No, no fighting, no protests, no appeals. You've made your choice. Now we'll make ours." "Which is," demanded. "To leave without regret," Daniel said. "You're giving us something valuable, actually. The freedom to build our own future without worrying about your approval. The chance to see what humanity can accomplish when we're not trying to fit into someone else's idea of civilization." Sophie nodded slowly, understanding spreading across her face. "We came to you as students hopping to learn," she added. "We're leaving as graduates ready to apply those lessons our own way. Thank you, Council Prime. This banishment may be the greatest gift you've ever given us." The confusion in the chamber was obvious. This wasn't the reaction they expected. They had prepared for anger, for threats, for desperate pleading, not calm acceptance, not gratitude. Daniel and Sophie turned toward the exit. 10 years called after them, not 1 day more. "We'll be gone in 5, Daniel replied without looking back. The doors closed behind them. In the corridor, Sophie let out a long breath. "Did you mean that?" she asked. "About it being a gift?" Daniel considered the question as they walked. "Ask me again in 20 years, he said. "But yes, I think I did. They don't want us to be part of their story. Fine, we'll write our own." Behind them, the council chamber dissolved into heated debate. Some felt uneasy about the humans' strange reaction. Others insisted it was proof of their alien nature. A few quietly wondered if they had made a terrible mistake. Governor Lisa Monroe stood on the observation deck of Unity Station and watched the ships arrive. Massive cargo vessels, colony transports, mining haulers. They came in steady streams, docking and loading with practiced efficiency. Below, on the planet's surface, humans were dismantling 50 years of civilization. 6 months had passed since the Council's verdict. The galaxy watched nervously as humanity began its retreat. "Another convoy ready," her assistant reported. "That's the 18th this week." Lisa nodded. New Harmony had been humanity's farthest colony, a thriving world of 3 million people on the edge of galactic space. Now they were packing it all up and going home. Except home wasn't Earth anymore. Home was wherever humans decided to build next. "Status on the terraform stations?" she asked. "We're leaving them operational. They might want to use this world someday. No point in wasting good work." That was the pattern across every human colony. They could have sabotaged everything, left ruins and poisoned wells. Instead, they were leaving gifts. Infrastructure that took decades to build. Orbital platforms, atmospheric processors, medical facilities with supplies still stocked. Lisa's communicator chimed. Captain Daniel Price's face appeared on the screen. "Governor Monroe, how's the evacuation proceeding?" "Ahead of schedule," she reported. "We'll be completely clear in 3 months, maybe 2. "Excellent. The Council is getting nervous about our efficiency." Lisa smiled at that. They expected us to drag our feet. They expected desperation. Anger, they're getting neither. Down on the planet's surface, construction crews were working on something unexpected. Not taking things apart, but building. Lisa had approved the project personally. "We're leaving them the concert hall," she said. "The one by the river. It's the finest building we ever constructed here. Thought they might appreciate it." Daniel's expression softened. "That's good, that's very good." Across the galaxy, similar scenes were unfolding. On New Boston, human engineers left detailed plans for the water purification system they'd perfected. On Frontier Station, doctors transferred decades of medical research to local hospitals. On dozens of worlds, humans departed quietly, leaving behind more than they took. Not everyone understood it. Certainly didn't at first. He was an engineer, practical and straightforward. When Lisa asked him to make sure all the power grid documentation was translated into galactic standard, he'd protested. Why help them? They kicked us out. Because we're better than that, Lisa had replied simply. Now, watching the last of his team board the transport felt something unexpected. Not bitterness, pride. They had built something good here. The fact that they were leaving didn't diminish that. His communicator buzzed. It was an engineer he'd worked with for years. Is it true you're really leaving? Yeah, next week. Silence on the line. Then, I don't understand why the council did this. You were good neighbors, good friends. Felt his throat tighten. Thanks, that means a lot. Will you come back? I don't know, maybe someday, but not as part of the galactic community. If we come back, it'll be as something else. What does that mean? Looked out at the ships. Hundreds of them, sleek and powerful. Ships built with technology the council never saw. Engines that pushed the boundaries of known physics. Weapons systems that existed only in human databases. It means we're going to find out what we can really do, he said. Dr. Amy Carter felt the loss more acutely than most. She'd spent 20 years studying xenobiology on New Harmony, working with samples from 300 different species. Her laboratory held discoveries that could have revolutionized galactic medicine. She was leaving it all behind. Her research assistant, a young human named Park, helped pack the final specimens. We could take it, suggested. All of it, it's our work. Amy shook her head. The samples were freely given, we'll leave them freely. The data, though, the data comes with us. She uploaded the files to a secure server. 30 terabytes of research. Genetic sequences, treatment protocols. Breakthrough discoveries about cellular regeneration that took 2 decades to perfect. Should we publish it? Asked. Let them have the findings. Amy thought about it. Part of her wanted to. The scientist in her believed knowledge should be shared. But another part, the part that felt the sting of rejection, hesitated. We'll decide later, she finally said. Right now, we focus on moving forward. The alien species that lived alongside humans watched the exodus with mixed feelings. Some celebrated, glad to see the disruptive humans go. Others felt confused. Many felt genuine sadness. On Unity Station's commercial district, a merchant named closed her shop early. She'd sold human art for 15 years. The delicate paintings, the strange music recordings, the books full of stories that made her laugh and cry. Now her best suppliers were leaving. She found Lisa Monroe in the governor's office, overseeing final logistics. Governor, may I speak with you? Lisa looked up, tired but welcoming. Of course, what can I do for you? I want to come with you. Lisa blinked. I'm sorry, what? With humanity, wherever you're going, I want to come. We're being banished. We're leaving galactic space entirely. It won't be easy. It might even be dangerous. I know, the Spore eyes glistened. But you're my friends, my real friends. I'd rather face danger with people who value me than stay safe with those who don't. Lisa felt emotion well up. You understand the council might consider this treason. Then I'll be a traitor, stood. Some things matter more than laws. She wasn't alone. Across human colonies, aliens were making the same choice. Engineers who admired human innovation, artists who loved human creativity, scientists who valued human curiosity, families who had built real friendships over years of living side by side. By the end of the first year, over 10,000 non-humans had requested permission to join the exodus. The council was furious. You're stealing our citizens? Accused during an emergency session. Daniel, attending remotely, looked unimpressed. They're choosing freely. We're not recruiting them. We're not even encouraging them. They're making their own decisions. Return them immediately. No, if they want to leave, that's their right. Unless the council has abandoned the concept of individual choice entirely. Intervened before could explode. This is unprecedented. So is banishing an entire species, Daniel replied coolly. You're not the only ones who can make historic decisions. The construction projects that oversaw were taking shape far from galactic observation. In the deep reaches of unexplored space, humans were building. Not colonies, not outposts, something far more ambitious. Shipyards the size of moons, research facilities that pushed the boundaries of known science, agricultural stations designed to feed billions, manufacturing centers that ran with automated precision. They were building an empire, not of conquest but of self-sufficiency. Sophie Grant toured one of the new vessels. The design was revolutionary, incorporating principles that humans had discovered but never shared with the Council. Faster engines, stronger shields, weapons that could defend against threats the galaxy had never imagined. "How many are we building?" she asked the chief engineer. "First wave, 500, then we'll see what we need." 500 ships that could each carry 10,000 people. Ships designed not just for travel but for long-term habitation. Ships that were essentially flying cities, complete and independent. Lisa Monroe supervised the final evacuation of New Harmony. The last ship waited on the landing pad. She walked through the empty streets one final time. The buildings stood clean and ready for whoever came next. The parks were maintained. The systems all functioned perfectly. They'd left New Harmony better than they'd found it. As her ship lifted off, Lisa looked down at the world she'd governed for a decade. She felt no anger, no resentment, only a strange sense of completion. They had been tested and found wanting by the galactic community. Now they would test themselves and see what they truly were. The last human colony cleared galactic space 4 years and 7 months after the Banishment order, ahead of schedule, as promised. 15 years after humanity left, reviewed economic reports and tried to hide his growing concern. The numbers told a story he didn't want to believe. Galactic trade had declined by 18%. Manufacturing output was down. Innovation rates had stalled. Dozens of industries that had thrived with human participation were now struggling. "It's temporary," he told his aides. "We're adjusting to their absence. Things will stabilize." But they didn't. Trademaster knew the truth because he dealt with it daily. His merchant fleet had grown wealthy, transporting human goods across the galaxy. Human electronics, human medicines, human entertainment. Now his ship sat idle in docking bays. "We need new suppliers," his business partner suggested. "For what?" replied bitterly. "The can't match human manufacturing efficiency. The don't have human creativity. The lack human problem-solving speed. We had the best suppliers in the galaxy, and we threw them away." His partner, a cautious, lowered his voice. "Careful, such talk could be seen as criticism of the Council." "The Council made a mistake. Anyone with eyes can see it." On the former human colony worlds, the new occupants were discovering just how much work humanity had done. The terraform systems were incredible pieces of engineering, far more sophisticated than galactic standard. The power grids ran with unusual efficiency. The agricultural systems produced higher yields than expected. An engineer named spent months studying the water purification plant humans had left on New Harmony. The design was simple but elegant, using techniques that shouldn't have worked according to standard physics. Yet they did work, perfectly and reliably. How did they figure this out? He wondered aloud. His colleague suggested checking the galactic database. There was no record of such techniques. The humans had developed it themselves and never published the research. Felt a strange mixture of admiration and regret. Humanity had been capable of so much, and they'd barely scratched the surface of what they could contribute. Problems began emerging across galactic space. A plague on Prime that human doctors might have solved. A manufacturing bottleneck that human engineers would have streamlined. A trade dispute that human diplomats could have mediated with their unusual perspective. Without humans, solutions came slowly or not at all. The Council held emergency sessions to address each crisis. Found himself thinking about Daniel Price's calm acceptance of the banishment. At the time, it had seemed like weakness. Now it looked more like wisdom. "Perhaps we should reach out to humanity," suggested a junior, a young with bold ideas. "Invite them to return under better terms." "Absolutely not," snapped. "We made our decision, they agreed to it, the matter is closed." "But the economic data clearly shows we need them." "We need no one, certainly not a species that couldn't follow simple social norms." The debate raged for hours and ultimately went nowhere. Pride, as always, was a powerful force. On the borders of galactic space, station commanders reported strange. Human ships passing through at incredible speeds. They never stopped. Never communicated beyond basic navigation protocols. They were polite but distant, like strangers passing in the night. Commander Helen Burke led one such patrol. Her ship, the Enterprise, monitored the neutral zone between human and galactic territory. She'd been a junior officer during the Banishment. Now she captained her own vessel. A distress call came in from a transport. Engine failure, life support failing, 20 passengers including children. Helen studied the coordinates. The transport was in galactic space just barely, technically not her problem anymore. "Captain," her first officer asked. "They're requesting immediate assistance." "Log the distress call," Helen said quietly. "Transmit their coordinates to the nearest galactic patrol." "That'll take 6 hours to arrive. They have maybe 2. Helen's jaw tightened. "I'm aware, but we were banished from galactic space, remember? Entering their territory without permission would violate the treaty." "To save lives." The council was very clear. "We're not welcome, not for any reason." She paused. "Send them our medical database and emergency repair procedures. It's all we can offer." The transmission went out. The transport acknowledged it desperately. Helen watched them on sensors, fighting to implement the repairs with no guarantee of success. 2 hours later, a galactic patrol ship arrived and rescued the passengers. The captain sent a message of thanks to Helen, along with a question. "Why didn't you help us directly? We would have welcomed your aid." Helen's reply was simple. "Because you asked us to leave, we respected your wishes." The message spread across galactic networks. Humans could have helped but chose not to, honoring the terms of their banishment even when lives were at stake. Some saw it as cruel. Others recognized it as principle. Decided to take a risk. He loaded his fastest ship with trade goods and jumped into the unexplored regions where humans had gone. It took 3 weeks to find them. What he found took his breath away. A construction platform that dwarfed anything in galactic space. Ships beyond counting, moving in precise formations. Space stations that gleamed with advanced technology. And beyond it all, partially built structures that looked like they could house billions. Human patrol ships intercepted him immediately. "This is Commander Cole of the Human Defense Fleet. State your business." "I am Trade Master. I come seeking trade opportunities with humanity." A pause, then, "Please dock at the designated platform. Someone will meet you." Landed his ship and stepped out into a docking bay that buzzed with activity. Robots and humans worked side by side, moving cargo with incredible efficiency. The technology on display was at least 2 decades ahead of galactic standard. Daniel Price met him in a simple office. The former captain looked older but content. "Trade Master, I remember you. You always dealt fairly with us." "Captain Price, I've come to propose renewed trade between humanity and the galactic community." Daniel smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "We're not interested." "But surely mutual trade would benefit both parties." "Mutual?" Daniel leaned back. "What do you offer that we can't produce ourselves?" Hesitated. "Cultural goods, art, entertainment, diversity of perspective." "We have thousands of aliens living among us now, those who chose to come with us. They provide all the cultural diversity we need." "Resources then, rare minerals, exotic materials." "We're mining asteroids in 3 different nebulae. We have more raw materials than we can currently use." Felt his confidence crumbling. "Then what do you need?" "Nothing from you," Daniel said honestly. "We've built everything we need out here. We're self-sufficient, happy, free." "The council might be willing to reconsider the banishment," offered desperately. "Why would we want that?" Daniel asked. "So we can return to being second-class members of a community that never wanted us, so we can follow rules designed to limit our potential. No, thank you." "You're truly content here, in isolation?" Daniel stood and gestured toward the window. Outside, construction continued on massive structures. "This isn't isolation. This is independence. We're building a civilization on our own terms. No councils, no restrictions. No one telling us we're too loud, too curious, too human." He turned back to, "You should go. Tell the council what you've seen. Tell them humanity is doing fine without them, better than fine, actually." Returned to galactic space with his report. The council received it in shocked silence. Humanity hadn't just survived. They'd thrived. Their technology had leaped forward. Their construction projects were massive. Their society had evolved beyond galactic norms. And they wanted nothing to do with the galaxy that had rejected them. Refused to believe it. Impossible, they need us. All species need the galactic community. Apparently not, said quietly. He'd read's report 3 times. We gave them their freedom and they used it to surpass us. Then they're a threat, insisted. With such technology, such ambition, they could pose a danger. Did report any hostile intent? No, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. Or perhaps it means exactly that. Perhaps they simply don't care about us anymore. The realization settled over the council like a heavy blanket. Humanity had moved on. The species they'd banished as too disruptive, too different, too dangerous had taken their exile and turned it into triumph. Somewhere in the depths of unexplored space, humans were building something the galaxy had never seen. Something that didn't need the council's approval or participation. And the galaxy was left to wonder if they'd made the greatest mistake in their long history. Years continued to pass. Human ships occasionally appeared at the borders, always peaceful but always distant. They traded minimally, shared nothing of their advanced technology, and departed as quickly as they arrived. The message was clear. Humanity had been asked to leave, and they had. Now they were staying gone. On his own initiative, tried once more to contact Daniel Price. The response came from Sophie Grant, now an admiral commanding a fleet. Council Prime, how can we help you? I wanted to discuss the possibility of improved relations between our peoples. Sophie's expression was professionally neutral. We have no hostile intent toward the galactic community. Our relations are already as good as they need to be. But surely cooperation would benefit both parties. It might, Sophie agreed, but it would require trust, mutual respect, a willingness to see each other as equals. The Council demonstrated 15 years ago that they're incapable of that. We may have acted hastily. You acted honestly, Sophie corrected. You showed us who you are. We're grateful for that clarity. It allowed us to plan accordingly. What are you planning? Admiral Grant, the first warning came from a deep space monitoring station on the galactic rim. Read the report with growing dread. An entire system. Gone, no survivors, nothing left but debris. Studied the sensor data. What could cause this? Unknown. The science team is investigating. 3 days later, another system went silent. Then another. A pattern emerged. Something was moving through galactic space, consuming everything in its path. Planets, ships, space stations, all reduced to scattered atoms. They called it the Devourer. First contact came in the sector. A colony world of 8 billion souls detected massive shapes approaching through space. Ship-sized creatures that moved in swarms, their biology more machine than organic. They tore through the planetary defense fleet like paper. The distress call cut off mid-transmission. By the time reinforcements arrived, the planet was gone, not destroyed, consumed, broken down at the molecular level and absorbed by the swarm. The galactic military mobilized. 500 ships from a dozen species converged on the Devourer's projected path. Admiral, a veteran commander, led the fleet. The battle lasted 17 minutes. The Devourers moved with horrifying coordination. Their weapons ignored shields and tore through hulls like they weren't there. Their numbers seemed endless. For every creature destroyed, 2 more appeared. Ordered retreat, but only 60 ships escaped. Panic spread across the galaxy. The Council held emergency sessions daily. Every military strategy failed. Every weapon proved ineffective. The Devourers adapted to each attack, learning and evolving in real time. In 6 months, they consumed 40 systems, 200 billion lives lost. Stood before the Council, aged and exhausted. We need help. We need ideas we haven't tried, technology we don't possess. The unspoken words hung in the air. They needed humanity. Never said, but his voice lacked conviction. We cannot show such weakness. Weakness? A junior stood, anger in her voice. Billions are dying. Pride is a luxury we can't afford. The humans would demand concessions, a return to galactic space, council representation. Then we give it to them, someone else shouted. What good is the council if there's no one left to govern? The debate raged for hours, finally made his decision. I will contact humanity personally. As Council Prime, I take responsibility for this choice. He sent the message on a secure channel directly to Daniel Price. Then he waited, not knowing if humans would even respond. The reply came 3 days later. Admiral Sophie Grant's face appeared on the screen. Behind her, could see what looked like a military command center. Council Prime, we received your distress signal. Admiral Grant, thank you for responding. As you know, the galactic community faces extinction. We require assistance. You're asking for help from the species you banished. Felt shame and emotion he'd rarely experienced. Yes, I am asking. Despite our past actions, despite the injustice we showed your people, I am asking for humanity's help. Sophie's expression gave nothing away. What makes you think we'd be willing? Because you're better than us, said quietly. You proved that when you left peacefully, when you left gifts instead of ruins, when you honored the terms of the banishment even when it would have been easy to violate them. You're the better species. I'm hoping that means you'll help those who wronged you. Silence stretched between them. Finally, Sophie spoke. I'll present your request to our leadership. But Council Prime, you need to understand something. If we help, it won't be to rejoin your community. It won't be to seek your approval or acceptance. It will be because innocent people are dying and we can't stand by and watch that happen. I understand. And we'll do it our way. Our tactics, our strategies, our command structure. If you can't accept that, we can't help you. Felt relief wash over him. Agreed, whatever terms you require. I'll be in touch. The transmission ended. Slumped in his seat, hopping he'd made the right choice. The human response came faster than expected. Just 2 days later, a fleet appeared at the edge of galactic space. 200 ships, each one larger and more advanced than anything in the galactic navy. Admiral Sophie Grant commanded from the flagship, the Liberty. She contacted what remained of the Galactic Military Command. This is Admiral Grant. We're here to help. Transmit all data on the Devourers, tactics, biology, weaknesses, everything you've learned. Admiral, still recovering from his defeat, immediately. As he reviewed the human fleet on sensors, he felt a glimmer of hope. These ships were different. Their energy signatures were unlike anything he'd seen. Admiral Grant, your vessels are equipped with technology we don't recognize. That's because we developed it ourselves, Sophie replied. In the 15 years since the banishment, we haven't been sitting idle. Now let's see what we're dealing with. Dr. Gray reviewed the data in his laboratory aboard the Liberty. A physicist specializing in exotic matter, he'd spent years studying theoretical threats to galactic security. The Devourers matched several of his models. They're not biological, he reported to Sophie. Not really. They're constructed entities, probably from another dimension or another galaxy. Their structure exists partially outside normal space, which is why conventional weapons don't work well. Can we kill them? Maybe. We'll need to target their dimensional anchor points, hit them where they're fully present in our reality. Can you design a weapon that does that? Smiled, already done. We've been theorizing about dimensional threats for years. Time to test the prototypes. The human fleet moved to intercept the Devourer swarm. Galactic forces watched nervously as Sophie deployed her ships in an unusual formation. All wings, this is Admiral Grant. Remember your training. These things are tough, but they're not invincible. Target the anchor points as designated. Stay coordinated. And if you see an opening, take it. Pilot Jacob Lee led Gold Squadron, 20 fighters equipped with the new dimensional disruptor weapons. As the Devourers came into view, he felt his pulse quicken. The things were massive, writhing masses of matter that seemed to flicker in and out of reality. Gold Squadron, engage at will. The fighters dove into the swarm. Jacob's targeting computer highlighted the anchor points, bright spots where the Devourers were fully present. He fired. The disruptor beam struck true. The Devourer's entire structure convulsed, then exploded into particles that dissipated rapidly. Direct hit, the weapons work. Across the battlefield, human ships unleashed their new technology. The Devourers, used to being invulnerable, suddenly found themselves vulnerable. They tried to adapt, but human tactics shifted faster than they could compensate. Sophie coordinated the assault from the Liberty's command center. Focus fire on the larger entities. They seem to be coordinating the smaller ones. Take them down and the swarm loses cohesion. The battle raged for 3 hours. When it ended, the Devourer swarm was destroyed. Not a single human ship was lost. Admiral couldn't believe what he'd witnessed. How did you do that? Science, Sophie replied. and the freedom to pursue ideas without worrying about council approval. Sometimes being banished has advantages. But the victory was only the beginning. Sensor data showed more swarms approaching from deep space. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. "We need a permanent solution," reported. "If we try to fight every swarm individually, we'll eventually be overwhelmed." "What do you suggest?" "Find their source. Where are they coming from? What's creating them? Answer those questions and we can end this properly." Sophie turned to who'd been observing from a communication link. "Council Prime, we need to pursue the Devourers to their origin. That will take us deep into unexplored space, possibly for months." "Whatever you need," replied immediately. "We'll need galactic forces to defend your core worlds while we're gone. Can Admiral coordinate that?" Nodded vigorously. "Yes, we'll hold the line." "Good. Also, we'll need full access to all galactic sensor networks. Real-time data, no restrictions." Listening from his council seat, objected. "That would give you access to military secrets, strategic information." Sophie fixed him with a cold stare. "Billions of your people are dying. Are you seriously worried about secrets right now?" The chamber fell silent, finally looked away. "Full access granted," said. Over the following weeks, human and galactic forces worked together. It wasn't easy. Decades of separation and mistrust didn't vanish overnight, but necessity forced cooperation. Jacob Lee found himself flying patrol with a pilot named Shen. At first, conversation was awkward. "I voted against the banishment," Shen said suddenly, "for what it's worth." Jacob glanced at his alien wingman's ship. "Appreciate that, but it doesn't matter much now. We're here to stop the Devourers, not settle old scores." "Still, it was wrong, what we did to your people." "Yeah, it was, but you know what? It worked out. We're stronger now than we would have been under council restrictions. Sometimes the worst things lead to the best outcomes." They flew in silence for a while. Then Shen asked, "Would you come back if the council apologized?" Jacob thought about it. "I don't know, we'd have to discuss it as a people, but honestly, I like where we are now. We're free. That's worth more than membership in any club." Gray's research team traced the Devourers back to a rupture in space-time, a wound in reality itself. Something had torn through from another dimension, and the Devourers were pouring through. "Can we close it?" Sophie asked. "Theoretically, but it'll take all our dimensional disruptors firing in perfect synchronization, and someone the rupture hung in space like a wound in reality itself." Admiral Sophie Grant watched it from the Liberty's command deck, her fleet arranged in attack formation. Through that tier, Devourers poured into the galaxy by the thousands. "All ships report ready," her tactical officer announced. Sophie activated the fleet-wide channel. "This is Admiral Grant. Today we end this threat. Every ship fires on my mark. Timing is everything. Dr. Gray, status on the focusing array." Gray piloted a small shuttle toward the rupture, the massive array trailing behind. "Almost in position, 3 minutes." Those 3 minutes felt like hours. Devourer swarms swarmed around the human fleet, but the ships held formation. Jacob Lee and his squadron provided cover for approach, their weapons carving paths through the enemy. "In position," reported, "activating array." The device powered up, its energy signature visible even through the chaos of battle. It latched onto the edges of the rupture, creating an artificial framework. "All ships target the rupture, fire." 200 human vessels fired simultaneously. Their dimensional disruptors converged on the array, amplifying through it into a single massive beam. The rupture began to collapse. But it wasn't enough. The tier started to stabilize, fighting against the closure. "We need more power," shouted over the communication line. Admiral, monitoring from his flagship 3 systems away, made a decision. "All galactic forces, redirect power to weapons, target coordinates incoming, fire everything you have." 500 galactic ships added their fire to the human assault. It wasn't the same technology, but it was energy, and energy was what they needed. The rupture shuddered, collapsed inward, and sealed. The remaining Devourers in galactic space flickered and died, their connection to their home dimension severed. Silence fell across the battlefield, then cheering erupted from 1,000 ships. Sophie allowed herself a smile. "Well done, everyone, let's go home." The victory celebration in the galactic capital was unlike anything in living memory. Humans and aliens mingled freely, sharing stories and relief. Jacob Lee found himself surrounded by alien pilots wanting to buy him drinks. To humanity, Shen raised his glass, the species we didn't deserve. The toast was repeated across the station, but not everyone felt celebratory. Approached Sophie at the diplomatic reception. His expression was carefully neutral. Admiral Grant, the Council wishes to discuss the future relationship between humanity and the galactic community. Of course, Sophie replied. What did you have in mind? A full pardon, restoration of all territories, reinstatement in the Council with full voting rights. We recognize our error in banishing your species. Sophie studied him for a long moment. That's generous, but we'll need to discuss it among ourselves first. Blinked in surprise. You're not immediately accepting. No, we've built a good life outside the galactic community. We need to decide if rejoining is actually in our best interest. But surely you want a return. Sophie's smile was polite but distant. Why would you assume that? The question hung between them, unanswered. 3 weeks later, humanity held a referendum. Every citizen voted on whether to rejoin the galactic community on the Council's offered terms. The debate was intense, passionate, and thoughtful. Governor Lisa Monroe, now overseeing a thriving independent human sector, argued against rejoining. We've proven we don't need them. We've built something better out here. Why go back to being junior partners in someone else's vision? Others disagreed. We can do more good inside the system, help reform it, make sure no other species faces what we did. Daniel Price, now retired but still influential, offered his perspective. The question isn't whether we can rejoin, it's whether we should. What do we gain? What do we lose? And most importantly, what message does it send about who we are? The vote came in with surprising clarity. 67% against rejoining, 33% in favor. Humanity would remain independent. Sophie delivered the news to the Council personally. The chamber was packed, every representative present. Council Prime, members of the Council, thank you for your offer to restore humanity's place among you. After careful consideration and a democratic vote, we must decline. Shocked murmurs filled the chamber, leaned forward. Admiral Grant, surely you understand the benefits of Council membership. We understand them perfectly, Sophie replied. We also understand the costs. For 15 years, we've lived free of Council restrictions. We've innovated faster, grown stronger, built a society that reflects our values, not compromises forced by committee consensus. But you helped us, protested. You saved the galaxy. Doesn't that mean you want to be part of it? We helped because innocent people were dying, because it was the right thing to do, not because we wanted anything in return. Sophie paused, looking around the chamber. You banished us because we made you uncomfortable, because we questioned traditions and pushed boundaries. That hasn't changed. We're still explorers, still innovators, still a little too loud and curious for galactic comfort. Rejoining wouldn't fix that. It would just create the same tensions that led to the banishment. Then what do you propose? Asked quietly. A partnership, not membership. We remain independent but maintain friendly relations, trade on equal terms, cooperate on mutual threats, share knowledge when both parties benefit, but we govern ourselves according to our own principles. And if we refuse, demanded. Sophie shrugged. Then we part as friends who helped each other once. We'll wish you well and go our separate ways. The choice is yours. The debate lasted 3 days. Some found the proposal insulting. Others recognized it as fair, perhaps even generous given history. Finally called for a vote. All in favor of accepting humanity's terms for independent partnership. This time the vote was closer. 412 in favor, 88 against. The treaty was signed 1 month later. Lisa Monroe attended the ceremony, along with Daniel Price and several other human representatives. They stood as equals now, not supplicants. This is a historic moment, said in his speech. The beginning of a new relationship between humanity and the galactic community, one based on mutual respect and genuine choice. After the ceremony, Daniel found in a private room. Council Prime, may I speak candidly? Please. The banishment was the best thing that ever happened to us. His mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. I've suspected that for some time. You freed us from trying to fit into a system that wasn't built for us. Gave us the space to discover what we could really be. In trying to diminish us, you empowered us. A miscalculation on our part. No, Daniel said thoughtfully. A necessary step. We needed to prove to ourselves that we didn't need your approval, that we could stand on our own. If you'd accepted us from the beginning, we might have spent centuries trying to earn validation from others instead of finding it within ourselves. Considered this? You're saying we did you a favor. In a strange way, yes, though I doubt that was your intention. It certainly wasn't. Paused. I apologize, Captain Price, for the injustice, for the prejudice, for failing to see your value. Apology accepted, and thank you, not for the banishment itself, but for teaching us that we're strong enough to thrive without anyone's permission. In the years that followed, the partnership flourished. Human technology flowed into galactic space through controlled trade. Galactic knowledge enriched human culture. Border stations became bustling centers of exchange and cooperation. But humanity remained independent. Their colonies grew far beyond galactic borders. Their ships explored regions no council vessel had ever reached. Their society evolved in directions the galactic community couldn't have imagined. Jacob Lee eventually retired from military service and opened a flight school on the border. His students were both human and alien, learning from each other. Why did humanity succeed where the council expected you to fail? A young student asked one day. Jacob thought about it. Because failure wasn't actually what they expected. They expected us to come back begging for acceptance, to prove we needed them. We succeeded by not caring about their expectations at all. That's it, you just didn't care. We cared about the right things, building our own future, helping people who needed it, living according to our values. We stopped caring about impressing anyone else or fitting into their boxes. That's when we became truly strong. Dr. Gray won the Galactic Science Prize for his work on dimensional physics. At the award ceremony, he donated half the prize money to establish exchange programs between human and alien research institutions. Science doesn't belong to one species, he said in his acceptance speech. It belongs to all who pursue truth. We're better together, but only if we respect each other's differences instead of demanding conformity. Amy Carter published her xenobiology research, the data she'd compiled before the Exodus. It revolutionized medical treatment for dozens of species. When asked why she'd finally released it, she smiled. Because we don't need to hoard knowledge to prove our worth anymore. We know what we're capable of. Now we can share freely. On the anniversary of the banishment, humans held a quiet celebration, not of bitterness or resentment, but of transformation. Sophie Grant, now retired and serving as a civilian advisor, spoke at the gathering. 25 years ago, the Galactic Council chose banishment for Earth. They saw us as a problem to be removed. We chose to see it as an opportunity to be seized. They thought they were diminishing us. We used it to discover our true potential. She looked out at the crowd of humans and aliens who'd built this new society together. We departed without regret because we understood something the Council didn't. Our worth wasn't determined by their acceptance. It was determined by what we built, who we helped, and how we treated others. The banishment didn't diminish us, it freed us, and for that, strange as it sounds, we're grateful. The celebration continued into the night. Humans and aliens sharing food, stories, and friendship, not as council members and subjects, but as equals who'd chosen to stand together. Far away, on the galactic capital, watched recordings of the celebration. He'd been invited but declined, feeling his presence might cast a shadow on their joy. They're thriving, his aide observed. They always were, replied. We just couldn't see it. We thought their differences made them weak. In truth, those differences made them strong. We tried to change them, and when they wouldn't change, we pushed them away. Do you regret the banishment? Clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. I regret the prejudice that led to it, but the banishment itself. Perhaps it was necessary, not for them but for us. We needed to learn that conformity isn't strength. That different doesn't mean dangerous. That sometimes the best thing you can do for someone is let them walk their own path. He turned off the screen. They taught us that lesson by simply being themselves, loud, curious, stubborn, compassionate humans, exactly as they always were. In the deep reaches of space, humanity continued to expand and explore. They built cities on asteroids and stations around distant stars. They pushed the boundaries of science and art. They remained thoroughly, uniquely, beautifully human. And they did it all without regret. Because sometimes being rejected by those who don't understand you is the greatest gift you can receive. It forces you to understand yourself, to build your own path, to become who you were always meant to be. The Galactic Council chose banishment for Earth. Humans departed without regret. And in doing so, they won. They'll need to get right up next to the rupture to place the focusing array. Volunteers. Every hand in the room went up. The mission was set. Sophie would lead a strike force to the rupture while held the line against incoming swarms. It was humanity's biggest gamble yet. And across the galaxy, people watched and waited, hoping that the species they'd banished 15 years ago could now save them all. She smiled. To build the future we want, not the one you'd allow us, is there anything else, Council Prime? The transmission ended. Sat in silence for a long time, understanding finally settling over him. They hadn't just banished humanity, they'd freed them, and in doing so, they'd created something they might one day regret. The Council received a final message from Daniel Price. We're gone, as requested. We wish you peace and prosperity. Perhaps someday we'll meet again as equals, if not friends. Until then, the galaxy is yours. We're going to find our own. The transmission ended. Tracking stations watched as the human ships jumped to faster-than-light travel and disappeared into the unknown regions. They vanished without looking back. The galaxy settled into an uneasy quiet, uncertain if it should celebrate or worry about what it had just done. But the vote was cast. The decision was final. Humanity would leave. And somewhere in the depths of space, in laboratories and shipyards humans had built far from galactic oversight, new projects were already. Projects that would reshape everything.